Hello, sir. I have heard that you're an expert on the French and Indian War. Can I interview you, please?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay, first let's start with when and why the war started.
The war started on January 1st, 1754, and the war started because of three reasons: fur trade, Indian relations, and like every war, land.
Tell us about the advantages between the two armies.
First, I'll start with the French advantages. They had a single colonial government, which means it takes less time when they need to make a decision. They also had a good pattern of settlements and had good positioning.
Okay, what about the English?
Well, they had a larger population and were self-supporting. They also have militias, and they've been fighting the Indian for over 100 years. They were also ready at any times. They controlled the seas and could stop any trade going in or out of France.
What are the disadvantages of the armies?
The French had many disadvantages. They had a small population of only 75,000, and they depended on imports, which they could not get because the British controlled the seas. They also didn't have many troops, and their defenses fell to fur trade companies.
Okay, what about the British?
They had a colonial assemblies, and each colony was jealously guarded their own power, and they were fighting an offensive war. So as you can see, the French had a lot more adversity than the British.
Great, now could you tell us a little bit about the British allies?
Some of the British allies were the Iroquois League and the Chief Mohawks.
What about the French allies?
The French allies were the Algonquins, Ottawas, and the Hurons, which are all Native American tribes.
Could you now tell us a little bit about the Battle of Quebec?
Yes, this is known as the turning point in the war, and it started on September 13th, 1759.
How did the British come into Quebec?
They approached Quebec by mostly sea, and some climbed cliffs so they could get into the French base. By doing this, the French were caught off guard.
So who won the battle?
Since the French were caught off guard, the British claimed the battle, but both commanders on both armies died. Fun fact, the British surrendered on what would become U.S. territory in years following the war.
There were two big turning points in the 7-Year War, the Battle of Quebec, and it was one of them. But what was the other one? What was the other turning point of the war?
The other turning point of the war was the Albany Plan, and it happened before the Battle of Quebec. It happened in 1754, and delegates from 9 of 13 colonies met in Albany, New York.
Why is this so important?
It was so important because the early proposal and the first proposal to have a British lead in American colonies under a single central government.
So what happened when the war ends?
A Treaty of Paris is signed on February 10th, 1763. France and Britain continued to fight in Europe for 3 more years. This war officially ends the war. The French gives all the lands in North America to Britain.
Okay, what are the results of the French and Indian War?
Britain gained control over half of North America's continent. This includes French Canada, all the French territories claims everything to the East Mississippi River and Spanish Florida. They're going to reestablish Britain. Also wants to decide to reevaluate the relationships with the colonies.
Thank you.
Yeah.